Hi all, I have an absolutely amazing game to show you from the Gashimov Memorial. It was in round 8. Vishy Anand was playing white against Mamedyarov and kicked off with e4. After e5, knight f3, black wanted to try and play really solidly. We have the Petrov defense. Now Vishy's response is very interesting. He plays knight c3, and now after knight c6 we have the 4 knights opening. It's not very creative. Yes, there are 4 knights out, 4 knights variation. Bishop b5 now is the main move, and black responds symmetrically with bishop b4. White castled, black castled. Now we have d3, d6. So far perfectly symmetrical. This often happens in lines of the English opening where black can just imitate white. But here now, let's see what happens. Knight e2, knight e7, and it continues a bit. c3, but now black doesn't usually play c6 here, funny enough. I think this would lead into big trouble if we wanted to try and carry on the symmetry, the imitation. For example, I suspect, like taking here, a4, you can't answer with a5 because a takes, and we're pinning there, black would end up losing a rook. So yes, the symmetry has to end. So c3, black plays now bishop a5, and then we have knight g3, knight g6, but yes, this looks very familiar for both sides here. d4, does white have a space advantage in the centre? Could this be significant? The knight is supporting d4, it's made that possible, and is the structure here more aggressive than this structure? Let's see, black plays now bishop b6. It looks as though a pin might be useful as well to try and exert more pressure on d4. Vishy isn't worried here though, in this particular position, for the moment, about bishop g4. He plays rook e1, and black kicks the bishop. We have bishop d3, and again it looks as though maybe bishop g4, but I suspect black isn't too keen on the prospect of giving up the light square bishop. Maybe there's going to be strong compensation for white, or even a move like d takes might be possible. So bishop g4 wasn't actually played here. We see instead rook e8, and it's at this point that the g4 square is tackled with h3, and black plays h6, and now we have bishop e3. These two pieces are holding e4 even though there's an interruption on the rook, so e takes is not winning a pawn at any point here. Bishop e6, queen c2, further supporting e4 from here. It also is interesting that white can potentially now play for c4 and d5 with tempo gain in the future. We see queen c7, a3, as though a5 might be as though b4, b5 might be interesting in the future. We have a5, c4, and black tries to clamp down now against white structure here. This is often a move you see in black plays in the King's Indian defense. It's quite often playing this move a4. It's a clamping move, but is it a weakness? Is it potentially also a weakness? It is tying down the rook. The queen is quite comfortable on c2, supporting e4 already. Weakness or clamping pawn? Rook ed1 now is played, and it seems white has the prospect of playing c5 at various points now, maybe disrupting black's pawn chain by taking on e5 after. Black here releases that central tension, and this changes the structure very significantly actually. Black plays e takes d4 here. We have, after bishop takes d4, a backward pawn potentially on d6. Could white just build up the rooks on d6? Is this the start of something interesting from white's perspective? From an Indian point of view, it's a bit of a tricky position to try and keep equal. A suggestion is bishop takes, knight takes, queen b6, and installing the queen on c5. This might make use of that clamping pawn without b4 to kick the queen. This is an interesting position for black. And black's dark square play might be an evidence black might actually play h5, h4 later as well. This seems to be a reasonable position, But what happened in the game? Okay, in the game actually we see knight e5. So the bishops have been kept on a bit longer, this tension here. And it's looking at doubling white's pawns. That's parried, the bishop retreats. We have bishop c5, so the tension kept. But now rook d2, and white simply wants to double and maybe put pressure later on d6 somehow. Knight fd7, rook ad1, rook ed8. For the moment, black seems to be very well entrenched on the dark squares. In fact, if you look at this position, white seems to have, structurally, d4 is a structural weakness with these pawns here. It seems as though that's a potential like Achilles' heel. But on the other hand, how to exploit d6? Well, there's another square though of interest, the f5 square here, and white plays knight h4. Temporarily, a knight on the rim is dim, but if it's going to f5, that's a very, very nice place to hit d6 and also the king side. Black now plays bishop takes d4. This is a very interesting idea. Very interesting indeed. It's to kind of bring a rook to take that pawn, believe it or not. A spectacular idea in its own right, but can it potentially backfire? The idea now is revealed. Rook takes d4, and not to defend d6 by moving the knight, because actually things like f4, f5 might be quite significant here, like trapping the bishop even. So that's a very dangerous threat here. No, the idea is c5 from black with tempo, encouraging Vishy to take on d6. What's going on here? After rook takes d6, the idea is revealed. Can you spot what black's big idea is here, giving up the d6 pawn? If I give you 5 seconds starting from now. Okay, it's actually to make use of the d4 square. Knight c6, to put a knight here, which seems, white's Achilles' heel is the d4 square. To put a knight there is the start of, a lot of powerful potential dark square pressure. Vishy contests this square with knight hf5. It's difficult to kick the knight. It's looking at d4. But now knight d4, and potentially this rook seems stranded now. Potentially we have queen d2, knight e5. Now if white just takes off the rooks, black's pressure seems to be quite evident on c4, for example, and that would really emphasize this clamping pawn. Again, no b3 to support c4. So if you imagine this position, after rook takes d8, rook takes d8, there's significant pressure on c4 here. The knight and bishop, and this knight is also threatening knight f3 check, winning the queen. So what can Vishy do here? A fantastic move is played in this position. Can you spot it? And can you understand the positional implications of it? If I give you 5 seconds starting from now. Okay, rook d5, a powerful exchange sacrifice, it would seem, just intuitively. It's solving the c4 pressure, making this pawn maybe a little bit less significant, that one point was not to be able to support c4. It also means that d4 could be undermined by white here more easily if there's a pawn shielding white on d5. Black did take this now on d5. He took this, but what else? Otherwise, isn't white just playing something like f4 to kick this knight away, and then maybe taking on d4? So black took it, winning the exchange. So he takes. We have queen b6. And now f4 gaining the space, but look at this structure as well. It's not just about trying to resolve d4. This pawn structure seems to be transforming now into something very aggressive. We've got this passed d pawn, for example. Knight g6, the queen's holding here for a moment, and on knight takes we've got knight takes protecting f4. So bishop c4, looking at taking care of the b3 square, and also maybe looking at f7 later when d6 is played, if d6 becomes possible. Black offers the exchange of queens. White rejects that. Maybe it was okay even to take here. White seems to have a promising position if he can undermine that knight here. And this knight's the first thing to go now, pretty soon. After b5, we have knight takes d4. And if takes, we've got knight c6 So black took on d4, the bishop retreated. So what has white gained from the positional sacrifice? It looks a little bit Petrosian-esque. Where is black's actual counterplay here? He's losing a pawn on d4 soon, and white will have this big pawn center. We have b4. Should white be worried here about b3? Well, maybe the bishop's got b1. White just plays actually knight f5. We have b takes a3, b takes a3, queen c3. Will black be able to get this pawn and get this pawn going? Well, white's got this big center now, though. Vishy plays e5. If he can get the bishop on a2 working, this really will be like almost like a Petrosian against Vishy game, if you remember, in the 1971 candidates final, where Petrosian's bishop was really powerful on this diagonal. This bishop is, can be instrumental after d6 to things like e6. We have rook a b8. So rook b2 now is threatened. Rook d2 handles that, offering that a3 pawn, of course. That's actually taken here, but white now takes on d4. So if we take stock here, white's only got one pawn, just one pawn for the exchange, and black's got technically a passed pawn, but it's blockaded at the moment. Also, look at white's center. We see check, king h2, and now on move 40, rook b c8. This might suffer now after d6. It seems white has some very, very big threats in this position, with this pawn center looking at f7 as well. a3. Now knight f5, meaning that d7 is now on the card, supported by the rook. But also after that, surely e6 is very, very destructive. We have rook f8 trying to get out of the way a bit, protecting f7. But now after d7, believe it or not, black felt a bit crushed here. He actually resigned here on move 43. Mamedyarov resigned. It looks like a horrendous position for his king side. If we look at this, rook d8, for example, in this position, looking at g7, it seems queen d4 would be a very strong move. Threatening e6 and then e7. What does black actually do here? So that's the major threat. Looking at g7. If black plays, for example, queen c7, e6, and this is pretty diabolical because of e7. If black takes here, takes, we've got e7 just winning material. So it seems, after a move like queen d4 here, this seems as though there's very limited defensive possibilities. This knight and queen are coordinating beautifully. E6 just seems incredibly powerful here. What does black actually do? The pawn's pinned. If here again, I think just e6, and then if f6, we just have e7 just winning material. It's pretty crushing stuff. Wow, what an incredibly powerful exchange sack from Vishy Anand in this game. So here, after d7, black actually foresaw this coming. This queen d4 and e6 is just so powerful. Okay, comments or questions on YouTube, and congratulations to Vishy Anand, by the way, for getting to rank 2 on the world rating list after this tournament, getting back into the 2800 club. So rank 2, just after Magnus Carlsen, a fantastic player. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.